There's some legislation that's coming up from the legislation this session.
Right, right.
Let's talk about that for a second.
So there are two bills that are coming up, and I actually have them right here with me. One of them is House Bill 922. And House Bill 922, what it says is this: in the Texas Family Code, Section 6.001. Well, first off, let me back up a little bit, because the first 50 pages or so of the Texas Family Code talks about marriage and the ceremony and everything else, and then it comes down to the issue of divorce. And here the marriage is so important. You have to have a ceremony by a certain person. You've got to have a license. It's got to be filled out at a certain time. Very, very important. But then in Section 6.001, currently insupportability says, on the petition of either party to a marriage, the court may grant a divorce without regard to fault.
That's no fault.
That's no fault. But so this is the issue that we're saying. Number one, there's a lot of problems with this, and I'm sure you as an attorney would understand this. Could you define for me what insupportability is? Nobody knows.
I don't think it's defined. I don't think it's even defined in the statute.
It's not defined. In fact, I could talk about this afterwards. The best interest of the child is not defined in the statute. The best interest of the child is used about 140 times in the Texas Family Code. Not once is it actually defined anywhere, which is a huge issue. So basically what one person is saying is, I think I know the best interest of the child, you know the best interest of the child. The only person who doesn't know the best interest of the child is the parent, by the way. But
unfortunately, in too many occasions, in too many situations, the best interest of the child is what some judge thinks.
Exactly. A judge who doesn't know anything.
Who has no training in child development psychology.
Absolutely. And does not even know the child. Maybe has never met the child. Maybe has met the child for 5 or 10 minutes. Versus parents who've been with that child when the child has been sick at night, who's been there for the first day of school, who's sacrificed and who's loved that child. And somehow a judge comes in and says, I am going to magically be infused with wisdom from on high, and I'm going to declare the best interest of the child. And yet another judge may say, well, I'm sorry, but no, that's not the best interest of the child. It's an undefined standard.
Jeff, the other thing that disturbs me from the standpoint of being an attorney and a litigator for too many years, is there's really, somehow this judge is supposed to discern what's the best interest of the child by hearing two different sides.
Yeah.
And actually, I've had a judge in the mediation tell me, I believe that they believe both sides are lying, and somehow you can discern what's true.
Yeah.
One side could be telling the whole truth, the other side could be lying.
Yeah.
But to me, the beauty, I think, of Texas, and the one thing I like about Texas, when it comes down to issues of custody, you can actually have a jury decide.
Yeah. So here's what I say the best interest of the child is. I mean, I'm going to say that the best interest of the child in almost every situation is to be raised in an intact family with his natural mother and father, period. Anything else you're talking about after divorce is not the best interest of the child, almost in every instance. Well, we're going to decree a divorce and now we're going to look out for the best interest of the child. You're lying. The best interest of the child would be to say, no, parents, figure this out, work it out, because the best interest of the child is for you to fix your problems and to raise this child in an intact family. That is the best interest of the child. But the Texas Family Code never defines the best interest of the child, so it becomes a whim. It becomes what an attorney might think, what a social worker might think, what a guardian ad litem might think, what who knows who might think. Everybody knows except the parent. And I say, let's put some definition to the best interest of the child. In almost every instance, and this has been proven again and again by research and studies, the best interest of the child is to be raised in an intact family with his or her natural mother and father. And by the way, the American Academy of Pediatricians actually wrote out a paper on this, in which they said public policy should reflect the fact that they didn't use the best interest of the child, but it is in the best interest of the child for divorce to be reduced, for parents to stay together. Because even in the so-called good divorces, of which there are very few, the good divorces, you still are impacting the child. There is something that goes on. In fact, Elizabeth Marquette, she wrote a book, it's called Between Two Worlds, and hers was a little bit different because she took people who were relatively successful, people that had college graduates, children of divorce. Now she compared two different groups. The children of divorce who were relatively reasonably successful, and children from intact family who were reasonably successful. There was a huge difference nevertheless. You can be successful but still have a lot of issues on the inside. And she was saying that, in her own life, it's like her childhood died. Once her parents got divorced, her childhood died. You talk with children of divorce. In many instances, they say, when divorce took place, something happened. Some people that have been, people of faith have said, how can God let this happen to my family? That what kind of a God is this that will let my family be torn apart? And children deal with it in different ways. Some people are resilient and they go through it. But the lie is that all children are resilient. Children are not resilient, they're broken and they're being crushed. But the adults want to be happy. So the adults will be happy and they won't realize what's happening to their parents. In fact, I would say this, let me take this one step further. Sorry for talking so much right now.
So children are being sacrificed, essentially.
They are being sacrificed. And, I don't know if people, I went to a restaurant one time with my wife, and I went to the men's room, and in the men's room it said this: drinking alcohol can be dangerous to the unborn child. Well, okay, I'm not going to get pregnant, but so I don't know why it's in the men's room, but they wanted to warn me that drinking alcohol would be dangerous to the unborn child. You have the cigarette packages. They have a label, the Surgeon General has determined that, cigarette smoking is hazardous to your health. What I think we ought to do is in every single divorce attorney's office, we should have a sign, and they should be forced to read and sign these disclosures that say, if you get divorced, these are the things your children are going to be at greater risk for. You might get your divorce, but your child is going to be more likely to engage in illicit sexual activity. Your daughter's going to be more likely to get pregnant out of wedlock. Your child will be more likely to end up in a prison, in a gang, to drop out of school, to never reach the upper 20% of income producers. Your child is more likely to have health problems. Your child is more likely, by a huge factor, to be trafficked by human trafficking. Every single malady in our society is heightened in a child who sees his parents split up. And I'm not saying that in every instance it happens, but generally speaking, because the best interest of the child in almost every case is to be raised in an intact family with his or her natural mother or father, you split up the family unit and you do something that you make that child more vulnerable to risks and risky behaviors in his or her life. So.
Well, I think that I've had a case, this was years ago, and I came to be very concerned about the judge.
Yeah.
And the judge made a ruling that I didn't understand. I was completely baffled. Now, my client was happy because he didn't have to pay child support.
Yeah, yeah.
But the judge, he was in the house. The judge moved him out of the house. The wife had left him in the house with 2 kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She was out, had her own separate apartment. The judge in a temporary hearing ordered him out of the house. Yeah. Ordered the mama back in the house, but did not order him to pay child support. And I didn't know what to think.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I asked the older attorney who was around at the time, what's going on? And he says, he asked me, did I know about the judge's background? I said, no. He says, did you know this judge, when he was a child, he ran away from home and joined the circus? Mm-hmm. And I started thinking, I said, this man ran away from home and joined the circus, and this man is now deciding what happens to families? Yeah. That makes no sense.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and yes, you're right. And I've talked with so many people, and again, I'm not talking about people that I'm talking about people that actually have made it through life, but they talk about still, even though they are successful, the impact that divorce had on their lives. And sometimes it's because of a decision of a judge, like you were saying.